Okay, so now we're in 10.6 and we're doing radical equations. First objective is to solve radical equations. Here are the steps. Let's read through them. Step 1, we're going to arrange the terms so that one radical is isolated on one side of the equation. So you want to isolate the radical in step 1. Step 2, you're going to raise both sides of the equation to the nth power to eliminate the nth root. So if it is a square root, we're going to raise everything to the second power. If it's a cube root, we're going to raise everything to the third power. Step 3, you're going to solve the resulting equation. If the equation contains radicals, it may be necessary to repeat step 1 and 2. And then the last step is the important step, the most important. You must check all solutions in the original equation. 4 steps. Isolate the radical, raise both sides of the equation to the nth power, solve the equation, and then check your solutions. Alright, so let's solve this equation. First thing we need to do is isolate our radical. So here's your radical. It doesn't matter what's on the inside, we're thinking about the outside, and right now we see a plus 11, so we need to subtract 11 on both sides. And now we have the square root of 2x plus 5 equals negative 5. Now at this point we can stop because we know the square root will never give you negative answers. So this square root is not going to give us negative answers because it's a principal square root. So this is no solution. So remember, your square root will not give you negative answers. So that's a no solution. So example 2. Again, it says solve, so we need to isolate our radical. So we're going to subtract 3x on both sides. And we have negative the square root of 3x plus 7 equals negative 5 minus 3x. Now the negative I'm not going to be concerned with, I'm going to leave it there. I want to get rid of a square root, so I'm going to square both sides. Square. When you square a negative, it becomes positive. When you square the square root, it cancels out. So now you have 3x plus 7 equals negative 5 minus 3x times negative 5 minus 3x. Remember, a square means multiply this by itself, which means now you get to FOIL it out. So let's FOIL. And then verify that you receive what I have. I have 25 plus 30x plus 9x squared. And now we have to solve this equation. So remember, when it's a square, we want to get everybody on the square side. So I'm going to have 9x squared. I'm going to subtract 3x and subtract 3x, which gives me 27x. And then subtract 7, and you get minus or plus 18 equals 0. And then you get to factor this. We see that they all have a 9 in common, so we'll factor the 9 out. And we have x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. We can continue factoring. We get x plus 1, x plus 2 equals 0. Set them equal to 0, and we end up with x equals negative 1, x equals negative 2. So we go through all of this just to solve to get x equals negative 1, x equals negative 2. If you have questions on the steps, feel free to email me. And then the last thing we need to do is take our answers and plug them back in to make sure they actually work. So we're going to take x equals -1 and plug it back into our our original equation. So we have 3 times -1 minus the square root of 3 times -1 plus 7. And the question is, does that equal -5? Well, that's -3. And this becomes the square root of 4. So -3 minus 2, which equals -5. So yes. And then we check the last one with x is -2. So we have 3 and then -2 minus the square root of 3 times -2 plus 7. Does that equal -5? So it's -6 minus -6 plus 7. And that comes out to be -7. So does it work when x is -2? The answer is no. Therefore, our solution is only x equals -1. Okay, so let's move on and let's look at another example. So now we have the square root of x minus 4 plus the square root of x plus 4 equals 4. So the first thing we need to do is separate the radicals. So you need a radical on the left side and then a radical on the right side. So minus square root x plus 4 and minus the square root of x plus 4. So now we have the square root of x minus 4 equals 4 minus the square root of x plus 4. The 4 we're going to leave on the right side. It can be on either side. So when you have radicals, and when you have 2 radicals, you need a radical on the left side and then get a radical on the right side. Square both sides because it's a square root, and we get x minus 4 equals now for this one, for the right side, you have to FOIL it out. So we have x minus 4, and we're going to do 4 times 4, which is 16. 4 times negative square root of x plus 4 is minus 4 square roots of x plus 4. And then continue FOILing. And now we get to the point where we have negative square root of x plus 4 times negative square root of x plus 4. It becomes plus square root of x plus 4, whole thing squared. Now let's go through and combine our like terms. So we have x minus 4 equals, well, the middle terms do not cancel out, so be careful there. So I have 16 minus 8 square roots of x plus 4. Combine them. Plus, well, the square root and the square cancels out, so that's x plus 4. Now we see we have another square root, so we need to isolate the square root, so get everybody over to the left side. So we have x minus 4 equals 20 plus x minus 8 square root of x plus 4. I'm going to subtract 20 on both sides, so I got x minus 24 equals x minus 8 square root of x plus 4. And then we're going to subtract x on both sides, so we get negative 24 equals negative 8 square root of x plus 4. And the last step is to divide by negative 8. So you should have 3 equals square root of x plus 4. And again, feel free to email me if you have questions on the FOILing and combining and simplifying. Now we're back to one radical. It's a square root, so we need to square both sides. And you have 9 equals x plus 4. Subtract 4 on both sides, and you get x equals 5. And before we can say that's our answer, of course, we got to plug it in and check. So everywhere you see an X, you're going to put in 5. So we have the square root of 5 minus 4 plus the square root of 5 plus 4. And the question is, does that equal 4? So this is 1 plus the square root of 9, which is 3. 1 plus 3 is 4, and that's a yes. So x equals 5 is our answer. One more example. So this time we have 2x plus 3 all raised to the 1/4 power plus 7 equals 11. So this right here, even though it's not in radical form, it is a radical. It's the 4th root. So we're still going to have to eliminate or isolate our radical. So subtract 7 on both sides. And you have 2x plus 3 raised to the 4th power, 1/4 power, equals positive 3. Now remember that the 1/4 power is the same as saying the 4th root. So how do you get rid of the 4th root? By raising it to the 4th power. Everything's raised to the 4th power. And then you get to simplify. So the 1/4, 1 over 4 and 4 go away. I'm left with 2x plus 3. And 3 to the 4th power is 81. And then you just solve for x. So you have 2x equals 78. And then divide by 2. And x equals 39. And before we can say that's the answer, we need to take it and plug it back in to make sure it works. So we have 2 times 39 plus 3 raised to the 1/4 plus 7. And the question is, does that equal 10? So this is going to become 81 raised to the 1/4 plus 7. Well, 81 to the 1/4 is the same as saying the 4th root of 81 plus 7. So that's 3 plus 7, which equals 10. So our answer is x equals 39. Okay, so this will conclude our video for 10.6. Please email me if you have any questions.